Trauma Therapist Podcast Plus listeners can listen to episodes early and ad-free right now. Become a Plus listener by going to Apple Podcasts, searching for the Trauma Therapist Podcast, and signing up today. Welcome to the Trauma Therapist Podcast, a show about the incredible people dedicated to helping those who have experienced trauma. My name is Guy McPherson, and my mission is to raise the awareness of trauma and to inspire each of us to help those around us. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, Samantha, here we go. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the podcast. Very excited to have as my guest today, Samantha Penrod. Samantha, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Awesome. So Samantha is a behavioral health account executive at the Receptionist, helping all of their behavioral health customers specifically. She lives in St. Pete, Florida, with her husband and her black lab, Rosa, and a baby due in February. Oh my God, we didn't talk about that. Congratulations. That's crazy.
Yeah, thank you so much. First one, so got about 5 months to go. Yeah, excited.
Awesome. Well, all right, before we get going here, share with our listeners where you're from originally and where you are currently.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Tampa. I was born in Tampa, Florida. I moved all over. My dad owned restaurants my whole life, so we kind of moved around a lot. And then after college, I ended up moving to Portland, Oregon for a little bit, and then Denver, which is where I started with the Receptionist and where the Receptionist is based. And then during COVID, they let me move home. So that's how I ended up back in the Tampa, St. Petersburg area.
Okay, awesome. And the Receptionist was one of the sponsors of this podcast. Just give us a thumbnail of what the Receptionist is, and then I want to get into your story.
Sure. The Receptionist, very simply put, is a check-in system that practices and other types of businesses put in their lobby. So it can greet and check in clients or visitors, and then notifications go out to the right provider, letting them know they're there.
Okay, so automatically, in other words, a person doesn't have to be there to be operating this. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So yeah, let's. How did this start for you?
Working at the Receptionist, you mean, or what do you mean?
I mean, your story. Let's get into your story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So when I moved to Denver, I had just gone through a bad breakup, living in Portland, and I had moved from Tampa to Portland, which is literal polar opposite sides of the country. And when I was in Portland, it was like the worst winter they had in like 20 years. I don't know if you remember that, like 2016.
Okay.
But the whole city shut down and I couldn't leave, and I worked remote. So it was really difficult. And then I actually kind of fell into a bit of a depression there. And that's when, we decided to break up, and I'd always loved Colorado. And so I was like, I'm going to apply to jobs in Denver. I'm going to apply to jobs in Florida, St. Pete, and wherever I'm supposed to land, I will land. And that was 7 years ago, and I've been with the Receptionist since.
What kind of work were you looking for?
I've always been an entrepreneur in some format. Loved working for myself. I worked with my ex-boyfriend's friends who started a CBD company helping cancer patients. And so I was their first support and salesperson. So that's what I was doing out there, working remote.
So you land with the Receptionist. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So I got started with the Receptionist in December 2017. And I was there for about 3 years before COVID happened. The start of COVID was just crazy, right? For everybody, but coming from Florida, where it's basically the Wild West and everybody's allowed to go outside and do things, it's polar opposite in Colorado, right? It's like, it's we couldn't leave our houses again. So like I was isolated in
Oh
Portland
man.
and then I was isolated
Right.
again. So it definitely brought up some stuff for me. And I've always been like an open book. So I was very honest with the receptionist about that. And I was just so thankful. I mean, the receptionist treats us very well. So definitely a safe space as far as like work goes and mental health goes. So
Mhm.
um, it wasn't until June of 2020 that I was like, you know what? I can't leave. I can't do much. I might as well get in really good shape. So I signed up to go to a personal trainer, and I was went to the personal trainer, and when I was about to leave, he was like, "Are you okay? You look a little cross-eyed." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine," but I just felt like maybe I was dehydrated or something. Um, and I went to leave, and I got my car, and all of a sudden my hand started tingling, my right hand started tingling,
Uh-oh.
and I like it looked like a cockroach. I like started losing control over my whole body. It was the
Whoa.
craziest thing. I thought I was dying. I pulled over. I begged a guy to call 911 for me. He was like, "No, I'm good," because it was COVID, and he was like, but he realized that I needed help, and so he called 911. And then when 911 got there, he was like, the paramedics, they were like, "You're having a panic attack." I was like, "What? What do you mean?" I've never had a panic attack. I have no idea what you're talking about. So that's how it started. That's how this part of the story started.
That sounds like a pretty severe panic attack. I mean, you were having like muscle.
Physiological effects, yeah, at that point. And I was so scared. I had no idea what was going on. And now I've learned so much that I understand now that the stress, even if it was good stress from the workout, put
Hmm.
my body into fight or flight. Um, but it skipped right in, like, I guess I worked out way too hard and put me right into a full-blown panic attack. But at the time, because I'm a relatively healthy person,
Hmm.
my doctor wanted to test me for multiple sclerosis and all these different things, which kind of began my health anxiety journey.
Okay. Wait, okay. I want to touch on that. That something about that rings a bell with me. But first of all, I'm kind of, well, not kind of, but I'm really impressed with what you said about the receptionist in terms of, you said it's a good place to be and you were able to be open with them.
Mhm.
I mean, that speaks a lot to any company, but how did you know you were able to do that in the first place?
Yeah. Well, I think I definitely try to live authentically. Um, everyone that works at the receptionist has a small bit of equity in the company. And so you act as if it's your own company, right? Like you care.
Mhm.
Everyone knows we work hard. There's no micromanaging. You know, we all trust each other. And that's very true. That aligns very much with my values. And that just allows a safe environment to happen.
Mhm.
And I had been there, for 3.5 years at that point. So, I reported to the CEO for a while and before we hired our sales director. And then, now I report to the sales director. So I was the eighth employee, started pretty much when soon after they got started in 2015. I started in 2017 and there was only 8 employees by that point. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's a place where they really care about values and being authentic. And, I was in my early 30s at that point. I'm like, I only want to work for somewhere that aligns with my value.
Mhm.
That's the kind of person I am.
That's amazing. I want to work there.
Yeah. Great.
So, okay, so you experienced what you were calling this kind of health anxiety. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. Well, it was the first time in my life that I felt fear because of not having control over my body. So when, my arms, I looked like a cockroach, like my arms shriveled up, my legs, I felt my lips getting tingly. So I knew I was about to lose
Mhm.
consciousness.
Yeah.
And that was like the first time in my whole life that I didn't have control over my body. And so naturally, when they start testing me for MS and all these things, and I'm in my early 30s, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Something's wrong with me.
Hmm.
Mind you, my dad was also sick at the time, and he had been sick for a long time with congestive heart failure. And he was my best friend. So understanding he was dying, and now I'm losing control of my body, there was a lot of maybe crossover, anticipatory grief going on
Hmm.
that I didn't really know about because we're in COVID. I mean, you don't know till like now I'm on the other side of it. I didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
Hmm.
When you were going through that, what you now know was a panic attack, I mean, you described the physical sensation, but were you anxious ment- mentally, cognitively? Was that going on for you? Were you even aware
I
of
think
that?
I think the first time it happened, I was terrified. Um, there was definitely like I didn't feel anxious, but I felt like what the heck is happening to me?
Right.
Um, I the next week I was like, I'm gonna go back to the personal trainer and I'm gonna try again. And it happened again. So that's when I was
Oh,
like, but not as bad. But I was
okay.
on my way home and had to pull over. And a cop happened to be behind me and he was like, here's some crackers. He was really nice and he helped me. Um, but that's when I was like, okay, maybe I need to go see a neurologist. Like I need to figure this out.
So what did they say? It was just panic attack caused
No, the
secondary
thing
to
about
extreme working out or something?
no, the thing that's amazing is that healthcare, and maybe it's different, right? Like again, I'm in Florida. I think different parts of the country are different. But at the time, the healthcare wants to fix you by your symptoms, and they're not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily taking in the trauma or PTSD or um, what's going on in your personal life. How are you emotionally side of
Mm-hmm.
things?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there wasn't really talk in my, even though I loved my doctor but like in their practice, there wasn't like this could be a physiological effect of stress in your life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like they wanted to figure out. And at the time, I thought, yeah, like I must have something wrong with me because I am not, this has never happened before. I hadn't learned this yet. So a lot of my tests came back normal. And then you're like, what's wrong? Like
Right.
nothing's coming back like anything's wrong, which is great. But at the same time, it's like, well, I'm not making this up. And I know for a fact there's so many other people in the world that deal with exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I to continue the story, I moved on. I did my best to move on, but I was like hyper aware of looking at my like Apple Watch and seeing how high my heart rate was. They thought I had POTS. I thought maybe it was because the altitude in Colorado and me growing up on the beach. Hmm. Yeah. So then November, so that was June when the first panic attack happened. In November, the night before Thanksgiving, I didn't get, we have a big Thanksgiving every year in North Carolina. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and again, my dad was sick, but because of COVID and everything, no one flew home. So I
Right.
was in Colorado and I was really sad, probably subconsciously, to not be going home. And so I went to sleep, and about an hour into sleep, the night before Thanksgiving, I woke up. I had a sharp shooting stomach pain. I saw a black flash, boom, right into a panic attack. My legs started shaking. My arms did the thing again. And I was like, call 911. I called 911. Um, they came and I was like, just take me to the hospital. I don't care. Like, I'm terrified. I'm
Yeah.
terrified. So as soon as I get in the ambulance, I was around safety, right? So I started feeling safe immediately. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like I was asleep. Like I didn't, this is crazy. Um, So that next morning was the morning that I realized that I might need help. Mm-hmm.
Can I just pause for a second? I just want to say that I am so like, am, I don't want to say impressed, but inspired and kind of in awe that you coming on here and sharing this story, and being as vulnerable and open. I mean, come on, it takes a lot of friggin' guts to do that. And it just speaks to how I think really strong you are as a person. I just want to say that.
Oh, thanks,
Yeah.
Guy.
No, I'm serious. It really does. So go, please continue.
Yeah. So that next morning I woke up and it was Thanksgiving. Um, my main doctor she had prescribed me a little bit of Xanax. And so she's like, if you feel panicky or whatever, just, take one of these very small dose. But at this point, like I wanted to go on a hike that day with my friends and I made them turn the car around because I didn't have the Xanax. And, it was because I was fear was leading me. Right. And so that's when I realized, like I had a conversation with my friends there, saying, I think I either need to fly home and spend some time at home, or I need help because I cannot live like this. This is not who I am. I don't want to live in fear. And I started kind of thinking about it and brainstorming and realized that one of my best friends from Colorado, her mom had gone to a residential treatment center um, in Arizona for depression. And so I ended up calling her and just like picking her brain. And I ended up like, so that was Thanksgiving. On December 1st, I checked myself into um uh oh gosh, what's it called? It's in Tucson, Arizona. Anyways, it's
Is
a
it
big,
is it a
yeah,
big one? Yeah.
yeah, it's a big one
Um, for depression
for
or
panic attacks.
for panic attacks.
Yeah. And because again, I thought I needed help figuring out maybe if I needed to go on Zoloft or, something to help me rebalance my chemistry so I wasn't having these panic attacks and figure out what was going on.
Hmm.
And I have a very sensitive, I'm a sensitive person, um, very in touch, like somatically with my body and sensations and feelings and things like that. And I I didn't feel like I wanted to be in a safe place where I could figure it out and maybe start a small amount of Zoloft or something to balance myself out in care. And yeah, so I checked myself into I guess rehab,
Wow.
panic panic rehab. And what's cool is the day before I did this, I called my boss and I was like, sorry, Tom, but I have to do this for myself. And the receptionist ended up paying for my flights. So they
Wow.
were like, go, it's fine. And they
Jesus.
let me take the time off and pay for my flights.
Jesus.
Hmm. Yeah.
Wow. So you get to this facility.
Hmm.
Um, I'm trying to find out was
Which
it
one?
Sierra Tucson?
Yeah, Sierra
Okay,
Tucson.
Sierra Tucson. So what happens when you get there?
Um, so at this point, like flying there and everything, I was just happy to be there, but again, had really no idea. And I didn't want to tell my dad. Um, Something I kind of failed to mention was, I think in November, earlier in the month, um, hospice had been called in and they said he had about like maybe a month to 3 months to live. But at the time, like me telling the story, even I didn't connect the dots at all, like as far as panic and anything about family and grief going on. So I got there December 1st. When you check into, uh-huh.
Up to this point, had you seen any type of therapist?
Yeah, talk therapy.
Okay.
Talk therapy for sure.
Helpful at all?
Yeah, but um I don't think talk therapy does it for me. I just didn't know what other kind of therapies were out there yet.
Okay.
hmm So so I get there December 1st. I They put you in like a I don't want to, it's not like a psych ward, but kind of is where they just like make sure you're stable because they don't know who you are and they don't
Hmm.
know what your situation is. And there's people coming in for, alcohol, drugs, depression, all kinds of things, really.
Hmm.
So you go there first, they get to know you. And then once you basically pass or you're stable enough, then they let you go into, they assign you like housing, and then you go actually into the program where you go to see different therapists, which I can go into different
Hmm.
types of therapy. And they also had a naturopathic program,
Hmm.
which honestly changed my life. The naturopathic program changed my life. So I think it was like 2 days I was in the first part, and then they assigned me, and I didn't want to tell my dad what was going on. I didn't want him to worry, but he had my location. And so he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm on a health retreat. I just didn't
Hmm.
want to freak him out.
Were you going in there? Excuse me, Samantha. Were you going in there for a month? What were your thoughts or
Yeah,
plans?
a month is what insurance covered. I did pay a bit out of pocket, but like not nearly what it is to pay without insurance. So,
Okay.
um, yeah, I thought 30 days.
Okay. So you do that and you discover this naturopathic path. I'm really curious
Well,
to hear about
yeah.
that.
Yeah. So basically it's like camp. Honestly, I think everyone should go to rehab. I think rehab should be in corporations. Like, I think I know rehab kind of has a negative connotation, but I think it would be healthy for everyone to go to
Hmm.
rehab based on what I learned in my experience. So, um, they give you get checked into a room. They give you a schedule. And so you see a therapist one on one. You go to group therapy, EMDR, somatic experiencing,
Wow.
and then you have a rotation of equine therapy. So like horse therapy, you might do it like once a week.
Hmm.
Um, and then they have like yoga. And then I paid additional for the naturopathic part where you get the body work part of it. So acupuncture, um, Tai Chi, um, uh, cranial sacral massages, all different types of massages. And then they also do blood work and see what's off and figure out how your trauma or stress is associated with your blood work,
Hmm.
and then help you figure that out,
Hmm.
which I just thought was the coolest thing because I had just gone to my doctor's office and stuff like back in Colorado, and no one could figure out what was wrong with me, and no one was looking at like the trauma side or the emotional side of it. So now I'm
Hmm.
in a place where they're looking at that.
Hmm.
And I was just in, like we talked about, like just doing talk therapy, and now I'm exposed to all these different types of therapies, right?
Hmm.
So about a weekend to the program, um, my mom tells me that my dad fell. My dad was a really big, tough guy. He was a Marine in Vietnam. He was a race car driver. He owned restaurants my whole life. Like
Oh.
cool, like really, he was such a cool guy. So when he falls, I'm like, okay, I think I need to tell him. Um, so I say, Dad, I send him a text and he's like, just let me know you're okay. I'm like, Dad, I'm okay. I was like, I checked myself into rehab because I have been having panic attacks and I just didn't want you to worry, but I'm okay. And he told me how proud of me he was and my resolve, and that it was going to be the best money I ever spent. And so I felt so much better at that point. But at that point, he started declining quickly. He fell again. Um, so now I'm kind of realizing I'm not just there for panic attacks, that my dad's about to die, and I'm also there for grief. hmm and I got lucky because they had their grief therapist um, on the payroll there was like he's one of the top 3 grief therapists in the country. And so at this point I'm like, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Um, I had FaceTimed my mom and she showed me my dad and stuff, but he wasn't awake. Um, so yeah, I got there December 1st. My dad passed away on December 15th, and I left on New Year's Day. So it was like, it was like the middle, exactly the
Mhm.
middle of when I was there, he passed away.
No.
So I truly think it all happened just the way it was supposed to.
I mean, it's an incredible story of how it's easy for us not to be aware of what's going on under the surface that's causing our symptoms, the symptoms we're
Mm-hmm.
experiencing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's so easy to look at a panic attack and think one thing, but and again, it's even easier for someone from the outside to look in. But oftentimes we don't take stock. We're not aware of what the hell is going on with
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. Um,
And it can take a lot of time to process too.
mhm.
Like maybe I thought I understood what was going on, but maybe it takes a little longer to process than I realized.
Samantha, as we kind of wind down here, can you kind of dial in on what your experience was like and what the process was like for when the people at Sierra Tucson were able to connect the dots more? You talked about the blood and maybe asking
Yeah.
questions about certain traumas and maybe how they were related. Well, I'm curious about that, what that looked like.
Yeah. Well, I think, the talk therapy was fine. The group therapy was great because you meet all kinds of people who, all kinds of walks of life, and realizing like how beautiful their souls are, like that's why I don't really like having a negative connotation around the word rehab because
Mm-hmm.
these people all had lights within them. Um, Even if they were addicted to heroin or, you know, had other
Right.
issues, so yeah, group therapy was nice. EMDR didn't really work for me personally, but I know it did for a lot of other people. But the somatic experiencing really was what did it for me. I still, well, I'm 5 months pregnant now, but I was in a lot of yoga because it's very somatic practice
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. But the somatic experiencing and learning those techniques and tools, now I tell everyone about somatic experiencing and my experience there. And then the body work part of it, understanding that chemical residue is left in the body uh, from emotions. Emotions leave chemical residue in the body. So
Mm-hmm.
with the body work, the acupuncture, the massages, I started to feel better. Um, I started taking 50 milligrams of Zoloft, and that definitely helped for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
um, helped. And then the blood work and everything came back, and I did test for a few bands of Lyme and Epstein-Barr. So the Epstein-Barr and Lyme can activate when you go through a lot of stress or a weakened immune system. So the symptoms that I was having, the panic attacks, were most likely a mix between the reaction from Lyme and Epstein-Barr and my nervous system being completely over, like,
Mm-hmm.
it was not, my nervous system needed a lot of help. So that's kind of what I ended up learning. And I still go to acupuncture. I still get a massage once a week. And people might not be able to afford that necessarily, but
Mm-hmm.
I do think that they're not necessarily just nice to haves. I think when you take care of the body work part of it, whatever type of therapy works for you, that, at least for me in this over stimulation, so much stimulation world, hyperstimulation, that's what helps me regulate my nervous system to keep it healthy. now.
Wow. After we're through with this, I'm going to go book a massage.
Good.
Man, Samantha, intense.
I wouldn't
Really?
change it though because I learned so much about myself.
I bet. Oh my God. I'm just thinking like the receptionist is so lucky to have someone like you, really, to be there and have gone through this and to be open to share this. I mean, it's really an incredible story. Um, wow. I want to thank you again for
Yeah.
doing this. Yeah. So, all right. So if people want to learn about you, maybe they want to learn about the receptionist, what's the best way for them to get in contact?
Yeah, definitely check out the receptionist. I specifically help all of our behavioral health practices because of what I've been through myself and just relating and trying to help folks. But yeah, thereceptionist.com is where you can learn about us. And then you can reach me there as well, Sam at thereceptionist.com.
Okay.
On LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay. I'll have all this linked up here at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com.
Oh, and one other thing. Sorry.
Yeah, please.
In March, I started a behavioral health success in session newsletter to try to help connect some of the operational dots for practice owners and people as well. So if you want to sign up for that, you can, and I'll provide that so you can put it in the show notes too if you want.
Okay. Just what is it? What is the name of it or the URL?
Success in session.
Success in
session.
In session.com?
No, it's on the receptionist website.
Okay.
So you can sign up there.
Mm-hmm. All right. We'll link that up.
And it's just a monthly newsletter. Last month we talked about addressing the weight stigma in mental health care, taxes, the business of private practice. Yeah, just trying to help connect a lot of the dots for people doing the hard stuff to help America heal from mental health. So
definitely. Awesome. Congratulations on the baby and best of luck with that. Great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.